Welcome to Intersections. It's my pleasure to welcome two sisters to our set today. Dawn and Susan Baggs attend the Citadel, and they've got a long and varied history with the Salvation Army and at St. John's Citadel. We look forward to learning a bit more about them as we move through. When I knew that this was going to happen, one of the first things that popped in my head was, these are children of Salvation Army officers. And for those of you who may not know what an officer is clergy in the Salvation Army. Mm-hmm. So these are officers' children. We who have had that distinction have been called all kinds of things. Officers' children,
POKs.
The OKs, right?
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of things. We won't go into some of the other ones. And so you have had that experience of a nomadic existence through your formative years as you grew up. You bounced around maybe every 4 or 5 years, whatever, sometimes not so long as that, and you've gone from community A to B to C, and I don't know if you've moved out of province through all that process. Or if
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
So that's a challenge in itself, being an officer's child, on two fronts, yeah. I suspect. One is, well, you're the officer's kid, you got to be good.
All eyes are on you.
All eyes are on you, right?
Always.
And that's unfair, but you talk about that a little bit. And the other thing is the whole notion of you don't have roots.
No.
You don't have roots, right? And that's an interesting thing. Yeah. Want to talk us a little bit through some of that stuff? Who wants to start? Dawn, you up for it?
Yeah, like growing up, it was just the normal thing of moving every 3 to 5 years, and it was, when you were younger, there's an excitement to it, because you never knew where you were going, and once you got a little older, you want to stay because you had your friends established and stuff like that. But I enjoyed it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Good.
For the
How about
most
you,
part.
Susan?
I liked it. I like Don said, you go around and you move around to different places, and interestingly enough, years later when people say, well, where are you from? And I'm like, well, I moved around a lot, so you have to say, so I just essentially now say that St. John's Well Mount Pearl is my home,
Mm-hmm.
but you get to see so many different places in Newfoundland. We did anyway, but you also got to see different ways of worship. And one of the places we lived in, we knew everyone in the community.
Right.
It was such a small place that
Right.
Everyone knew you and you knew everyone. And they looked after us because we were the officers' kids.
Okay. Any pressure there as being the officer's kid?
Not when I was younger, in elementary school and stuff, but when when I was in high school, I did find it a little bit more, we were still in a smaller community, but again, it was, you had to be very careful of, what you were doing, and, luckily for us, for me personally, I was, I got saved young, so, I still had that, the belief that I have to do the right things. So, I wasn't out with, with the high school crowd, at the weekends drinking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was foreign to me,
Okay.
to be honest.
Yep.
I didn't feel the pressure, and my friends, they didn't pressure me to do that. They knew my background, they knew my faith.
Okay.
They respected that.
Good.
And even today, when I at work, I still have that respect because of my faith,
Yeah.
which is huge.
Absolutely. I may come back to that in a little bit. Susan, you want to pick up anything there?
Yeah, it was a bit different. I was in elementary school when they were in junior high and high school. Now, there were a few people that used to always make fun of me because I was an officer's kid, and because my parents were clergy and our last name, and it did make it difficult. But I had some friends I grew up in the church, so I had friends from church as well. But like Don, I never felt the inclination, and I still didn't. Even in through university, never felt the inclination of needing to go out and party like everybody else did. And I remember when I was living in Nova Scotia, and one of the girls said, well, we're going to get you out to drink. And I'm like, good luck with that, because it's not going to happen. But my best friend in Nova Scotia, she was like, Susan, if you do ever want to go out with us, like, I won't drink. If you want to go just to enjoy, spend some time with us, I won't drink if you decide to go. And she never did, but she never pressured me either, which was nice.
Do you find, and just a question that just occurred to me, do you find that when you sort of make known who you are through, sometimes it's a comment, sometimes it's just lifestyle, that there is a deeper respect for who you are? Do you find that? And not that you're a weirdo or anything of that nature, but that people know where the lines are,
Yeah.
and they know who you are, and they know what's good and what's not good, and all that. Talk a little bit about that in the workplace and you know, that kind of stuff, right? You finding any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I've got, where I work in a school, it's a bit different, I guess. But a lot of the friends, the colleagues that I work with, a lot of them, if they say anything, they'll be like, oh, Susan, sorry. You know, if they swear or anything, they're like, Susan, you know, didn't mean that, mind words. But they also respect the fact that I am Army, and I've made friends. And if anything that I've had difficulties with, I mean, I know there's a couple of teachers in particular that I can go to and speak to, and because they have faith as well, and they're not afraid to, you know, they share that faith. So I can speak to them, and I know that they care enough that they'll help me out in any way as possible.
Dawn?
For me, I didn't have, in my work experience, coworkers that had a lot of faith. I worked in the oil and gas industry for almost 15 years. So there was a lot of, you know, it was the weekends were, you know, the bars and the swearing and stuff like that. But they all respected me for what I believed. And they knew if they needed someone, you know, just to come talk to, or even have someone, if they needed something, they were going through something in their life that they needed someone to pray for them, they knew that they could come to me and say, Dawn, you know, I need some prayer, right? And where I'm to now, like Susan, you know, it's, if someone swears, sorry, they apologize immediately, and they've toned it back when I'm around, which, when it first happened, it was like, wow, you know, I didn't have that before.
Speaks
right? And, you know, it makes the working environment for me much more comfortable.
Good.
Right?
So you settled in the St. John's metropolitan area, Mount Pearl, all that, and you're, you know, busily involved in the world of work and all that kind of thing. So when did St. John's Citadel come knocking on your door, or you knocking on its door? How did that happen for you? And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, for me, I was going to Mount Pearl when I first moved into St. John's. Well, CBS for a year, and then we moved to Mount Pearl. Once Mom and Dad moved to Nova Scotia,
With me.
I attended Mount Pearl for maybe a year, you know, stayed with Mount Pearl. But all my friends were here at the Citadel.
Okay.
So I transitioned to the Citadel, and I've been here ever since.
And so what kinds of things do you do at the Citadel?
Come to church. Right now I'm the treasurer.
Yes, you are.
Not a huge, you know, I'm one of these ones that are in the background.
Hey, takes all
You know,
kinds, you know, we all have a
I'm
spot.
a very quiet kind of person.
We all have a spot.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you keep us on the tracks with the money. That'll be good. It'd be helpful if you do that.
That's her forte.
That's her forte. Okay, so talk about you know, and so university was part of all of that, I imagine.
Yeah, so after high school, I moved with Mom and Dad to Nova Scotia, and I stayed there for 3 years. When I moved back, I believe it was in 2001, I came here. I started coming here to the Citadel mainly because Dom was coming here and our aunt would come here, and it was just almost easier then. And I've been coming to the Citadel pretty much ever since.
So how long was that now?
For you, it's
Mine's been over 20 years for me.
My goodness.
Not
Yeah.
quite the same for me because I had a few teaching assignments outside of St. John's, so I had to move away for a year or so. So I've probably been.
Kept coming back.
I did keep coming back.
Why? Because they're here?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Seems
it's
to think
family
there's-
here.
there's an-
It's home.
It's home. And it's
Yeah.
associations, right, with
Yeah.
people?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so what is it you like about the St. John Citadel style of worship? I mean, you've seen a lot of different styles of worship. So, part of it is you've got to have comfort, right? So,
Yeah. For me, it's, you get the great worship, the worship team are great, but you also get the old
The old courses.
courses as well. I mean, there were a
Which we
couple of
grew
Sundays
up
ago
on.
when Major talked about, this old course, how many people knew it and you had to put up your hand. I put up my hand, then I looked around and it was all, like everyone else
Older
was so much
generation.
older than me who put up their hand. But I was like, well, I'm from the Bay, so I knew the course,
We grew
right?
up on the course.
Yeah, you
But
cut your
it
teeth
just,
on the course.
Yeah.
it incorporates everything. I mean, you get the good teachings and you get the good worship, and it just brings everything together for me.
Good. Susan?
It's the same, really.
Okay.
We grew up being officers' kids, and like you said, getting to see all different kinds. But once we started going to a corps that had a band, I think that's what I fell in love with. I love band music, and I always have. We were both in the band briefly years ago, and I
Give you
continued.
a number
that.
to call.
No,
You didn't know that.
no, it's been a very long time since I played an instrument. But just listening to the band, and I still get chills sometimes in certain things that the band plays, and it's just pure enjoyment. But I mean, the worship is incredible as well. Listening to certain songs and just hearing the joy that comes when those songs are sung.
And the interesting thing, I think, you've touched on something that impacts me, and that is the whole music piece, whether it's the band or, in my case, I've gotten into the lyrics of the songs, and the songbook is a real treasure chest.
Yeah.
Because it's our theology, it's who we are, what we believe, right? So, your comment about the music and the band stuff speaking to you, very real part of worship, I find.
Yeah.
That's great, wonderful. So, let's get to the nub of this thing. You've been around church all your life. So, if there's such a thing as getting there because I've been in church, you qualify. But we both,
Well, that's
through
Yeah.
all three of us, both of us,
Yeah.
we know that it's a very individual choice, right? Was there an event, a person, anything that spoke particularly to either of you that helped you come to a place of personal faith? When you realized, I had to do this for me. I think, Don, you said you used the terminology, I was saved at a very early age. We believe in child evangelism in the Salvation Army. And so you want to pick up that a little bit and take it from there?
I can remember back in one of our earlier places that we lived, being in church one evening, and I felt it upon my heart that I had to go and speak to a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And we went up, and that always stuck with me, right? Knowing that I could share my faith with somebody and it might impact them. But I'd say the biggest source probably for me would be my parents.
Mm-hmm.
They've had such a strong faith.
Mm-hmm.
And
No better testimony to
No.
give, right? Than to look there and say,
yeah,
you modeled it. You modeled it.
And they still do.
And they
Yeah.
still do.
Yeah.
How about you?
Kind of same. I can honestly say I can't remember when I got saved,
Okay.
but just there had been something that impacted me and that I had carried a lot of pain with it.
Mm.
And I got into music camp, and
Music camp fixes everything, you know.
It did. And I went back to school the year after. And my friend said, Susan, you're different.
Right.
But our parents are amazing.
Good. Excellent. Excellent. And that's wonderful. That is wonderful. Last question. Last question. Daily living. Get up in the morning, you know, get dressed, go to whatever's coming during the day. What sustains you for that day and whatever may come?
Oh, you're going to make me
Yeah,
start.
you can go first.
Just, I guess knowing our background and knowing that we come home to family and that if anything rough goes through the day, they're there.
Okay.
And that they'll pray for us no matter what.
No matter what.
So,
Okay. Done?
For me, I love music. If I'm in the car, music, you know, home, I don't like silence. So like the music is always on, and it's always, you know, Spotify. It's the Christian, you know, that gets me through the day. You know, there's sometimes I just have to have that music, and like Susan said, mom and dad are there. You know, other family members. Anytime I need anything,
And
it's
the
there.
words that are coming out are music and mom and dad,
Family,
but beyond that
yeah,
is faith,
yeah.
right?
But then that's where it
the
all comes
music-
from.
The music that you're listening to is
It's faith
faith-based.
music, yeah.
Your mom and dad speak to you from a position of a history of faith, right?
yeah.
And so, yeah,
And I always think of one of my favorite songs, and it's an old one. It's a Steve Green one. Let all those who come behind us find us faithful.
absolutely. Absolutely.
That is, you know, like every now and then that'll pop in my head, and it just reminds us that us as Christians, we have to live that life of faith. We might not always be the ones out, you know, to preaching it every day and, you know, with the words, but by our living, that is that, you know, it's a testament as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I want to say thank you for joining me here today. I know this is not necessarily right up there in your top 10 things to do, but, you know,
Sorry.
I think it's really important that we encourage each other. And by the kinds of things that you've shared here today, we have no way of knowing how that will positively impact some who might listen and have heard what you've had to say today. So thank you very much. And I will conclude by saying this is the most I've ever heard either one of you speak. And
You haven't seen me in school.
It's wonderful, and from here on in, I'll be looking for this and more. It'll be great. Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.